Good morning, everyone. Today is Tuesday, December 22nd, 2020. My name is Karen Bodenschatz, and I serve as Associate Pastor at First Lutheran Church in Onalaska, Wisconsin, and this is my morning musing. So this morning, as I was enjoying my first cup of coffee, I was pondering our word for today, which is loyalty. And loyalty is defined as unswerving in allegiance. And so I was thinking about what that meant, what that looks like in my own life. And then I started thinking about what does that look like when it goes too far? When our loyalty to an idea or a person or a group of people or to an ethnic group of people, what happens when loyalty turns to idolatry? And where is that line? And what's going on, of course, because I'm me, what's going on inside the people where that happens, where loyalty switches to idolatry? And so I was thinking about all of those things and how loyalty, that even just normal loyalty, but certainly loyalty that's moving its way toward idolatry, tends to then create a system of ideas that create hierarchy among people. Even if it's loyalty to an idea of something, eventually, if it's obsessive loyalty, which we would call idolatry, then there's this creation of a hierarchy. And of course, as I began to think about I began to think about all that I've been reading about racism and anti-racism and the history of racism in particular, where there was this idea that people wanted to put out into the world. And so they created a whole system and hierarchy of understanding humanity as different races, and some were more superior than the other. And that actually isn't true. We know from biology and from chemistry, from all the sciences, that we're all the same, except that we look a little different based on our genes and our ethnic groups. But then I began to think about ways that we can combat that. And one of the things that I'm really enjoying about my friends on Facebook right now is the pictures that they are posting of Mary and Joseph and Jesus, or of the wise people, or of just any kind of biblical characters, that we're becoming more and more aware of how different ethnic groups image these sacred people. Of course, I always grew up with Mary and Joseph and Jesus and the shepherds and the wise folk, maybe not the wise folk, all being white. And, that's not wrong. I think it's good for us to image ourselves, to be able to see ourselves in God. But on a very basic level, what it does then to me, to any of us, if that's the only image we ever see of Mary or Joseph or Jesus or those who follow Jesus or God, then we begin to only know God as white. And if God is white, well then white must be really good, right? Like it must be the best, because that's what God is. And there we go. We got this hierarchy going. But what's really fun for me and thought-provoking for me is to begin to explore images, especially right now, of Mary and Elizabeth, from different ethnic groups. Like, how are they imaging Mary? And their choices of how Mary and Elizabeth greet each other, how Mary carries Jesus, how they are in these pictures, opens my eyes to begin to wonder and imagine what that may have been like that first month or so when Mary had Jesus. Because the reality is, friends, Mary, Joseph, Elizabeth, Jesus, the wise folk were from an ancient, a faraway land. most likely Asia of some sort, perhaps Africa. Anybody depicted in those first stories would have been Middle Eastern. Now that starts your wheels turning, hopefully, this early in the morning. So I encourage you in these days leading up to Christmas, and perhaps your discipline in the 12 days of Christmas is to look up different images of these holy ancestors of ours and begin to imagine and wonder about those images. Use them as a focal point for your devotion. So I encourage you to do that so that we don't allow ourselves to move from loyalty to idolatry, so that there is some balance there, so that we can remain loyal in our support and our love of people, but we don't become idolatrous and break that first commandment. I really look forward to seeing you on Christmas Eve, those of you who will be attending our parking lot worship, even if it is through a windshield. And until then, be well, be kind, for Christ is with you.